Hello folks, I'd like to welcome you back to the Working with Workspace series, and today we're going to focus specifically on Google for Education. So just to introduce myself, I'm Rowan, I'm a workspace specialist for SADA, and I help our customers or potential customers evaluate if Workspace would be an effective productivity solution for them, and that includes educational institutions like schools and universities too. The agenda for today is before we go into the Google for Education solution and some of the benefits that can bring, as well as unpacking what tools and capabilities are included, I first wanted to have a look and a recap on how the landscape of education is changing and how some new needs are evolving, and that will feed nicely into the story of how Workspace is a solution really built to solve those needs. After we've deep dived a little bit into some of those challenges that educators and students alike are facing, we want to explain at a high level what the Google Workspace platform is, and specifically how it is designed to help some of these remote learning and teaching challenges that are being faced. After that, we want to explain how Google is built a little differently and some of the advantages that offers. And then at the very end, we're going to have a look at what the tools look like in action and some of the benefits that can bring. Without further ado, let's jump into a bit of a discussion or recap on how the landscape of education is evolving, particularly due to the effects of the pandemic into a more remote teaching and learning environment. We actually wanted to look at 3 different perspectives in the transition to remote teaching and learning. And the first one of those is from the student's perspective. So some of the challenges that students particularly have faced in the transition is around building relationships and maintaining intimacy, both with teachers, educators, and classmates alike. In addition to that, when you're on video calls doing remote learning, engagement and participation is a lot more difficult or challenging to encourage and get involved in from a student side, whereas in the classroom it can feel a lot more natural and connected. And lastly, accessibility for using the right devices and getting into the right tools required for remote learning as well. So as well as that, we wanted to have a look at the teacher experience and some of the challenges that those folks have faced during the transition as well. And one of those is very similar to the student experience in the sense of maintaining a personal connection. So teachers have reported that they find it a lot more challenging and difficult to maintain intimacy and build trust when there's a remote connection compared to being physically in the classroom, where again, it can feel a lot more natural. Also, from the teacher perspective, facilitating effective participation and maintaining attention during remote learning has also been one of the biggest challenges, of course. It's much easier to police and maintain order, perhaps, and attention in a classroom, and there's techniques that teachers have been using for decades in that sense, but transitioning into a remote environment is a little bit different. And lastly as well, managing safety of the students in the way that they are able to interact with each other, but also from external threats, which are more visible on the internet. Teachers are less used to these modern ways of controlling and policing safety rather than in the physical environment. And lastly, we wanted to look at it from the perspective of the administrator or the person who deploys the systems that the school or educational institution uses to manage learning. So from that perspective, there's a data and infrastructure security challenge that they're facing when students are using their own devices and network and perhaps using new remote learning tools that haven't been used before. That poses new security challenges. Also, student retention. So ensuring that these remote learning programs is able to entice students to continue learning with the institution. And lastly, that feeds into the point around revenue lost and cost reductions. So with the transition, there perhaps is a need to consolidate tools and reduce IT infrastructure costs. Now that we've looked at some of those challenges and we understand some of the more recent difficulties that the transition to remote learning has created, I want to introduce the Google Workspace platform and why that can be so helpful, specifically in today's educational needs. Google for Education really brings the best of Google for Education to help transform teaching and learning in a positive way. And it's everything that you need to teach and learn all in one place. And this means that the platform's integrated together. So there are different tools that are included that we'll go into, but all of these tools are woven together under one platform. You get simple, flexible, and secure tools with Google Workspace for Education. It will allow you to enhance instruction which will allow you to use the easy-to-use learning tools for better collaboration and communication. You'll be able to boost productivity and save time on various tasks with helpful features. Elevate student work as well by providing students with the tools they need to complete their work effectively. And lastly, you can protect your data in a secure way. What's included under the Google Workspace platform? Well, I've broken it up into 4 different categories, which we'll take a deeper dive into and explain the individual tools within. But those 4 categories are communication tools, collaboration tools, management tools, and lastly, there's a specific solution that Google have designed integrating all of those, which is called Google Classroom, specifically designed for remote learning and teaching. Let's have a first look at communication. Within the communication aspect of Google Workspace, there are 4 main tools. Gmail for email-based services, Calendar for working calendar and managing schedules, Google Chat for messaging, which includes rooms where you can manage communication, tasks, and files all in one place, and lastly, Google Meet for video calling. And this has definitely been one of the focuses of Google in the transition to remote learning, how they effectively facilitate remote learning using video call, and that's with Google Meet. Next, we have collaboration, and this section or area is mainly around file storage. So you have Google Drive where you can store all kinds of files, but there's also the Google file formats that allow some amazing benefits like real-time collaboration, revision history, and managing of sharing. So there's that, and then there's other tools involved as well, such as Sites, AppSheet, and Currents, which provide additional capabilities to organize information, and then Keep and Jamboard, some simple and fun tools that help people work together as well. Under management, this provides a secure layer of controls and security capabilities that help make sure that the data that's stored in Workspace is completely compliant, secure, and also that you can monitor all of the activity that goes on with any of the users in Workspace. So you have full view of all of the activity. There's audit logs explaining all of the tasks that people take. And you also have these security controls and device management built in as well. And lastly, specific to Google for Education, there is the Google Classroom tool, which combines all of these services and capabilities and integrates them in a way that's specifically supposed to make remote learning and teaching as easy as possible and remove all the barriers that hinder that from being successful. So there's actually a number of benefits that we'll go into of the Google Classroom tool, and we'll actually get to see it a little bit in action later. But from both a teacher and a student perspective, the idea is to make that education experience remotely as seamless as possible. Not only do Google have those 4 different pillars or areas within the Workspace set of tools that help facilitate education, they're constantly evolving, improving, and consolidating on these products, as well as creating new products and programs to meet the differing needs and changing needs of educators and students alike. So for example, Google have really focused, like I mentioned earlier, on the Google Meet tool, the video calling service within Workspace, adding in new participant abilities like Q&A and polling and breakout rooms. They're also consolidating tools to facilitate remote classes better by integrating Classroom and Meet together in a seamless and easy way. And lastly, they're working on security controls for teachers to make sure that they have the capabilities they need to effectively manage their classes. The Google Workspace for Education solution actually has 4 different tiers available. There is a free option called Google Workspace for Education Fundamentals that provides the basic tools that your educational institution can use to get started on the Google platform. But after that, if you wanted to make it your main remote learning and teaching platform or productivity platform, then there are a number of paid tiers where you get increased security, Meet features, and compliance based on your organizational needs. So there are a number of tiers available, starting from absolutely no cost at all the way up to the highest tier that Google want to offer for educational institutions. Lastly, I wanted to highlight that there is huge widespread adoption of the Google tools, particularly in the education space, all across North America. Over 150 million Google Classroom users worldwide, over 40 million Chromebook users as well, which is Google's lightweight machine alternative to Windows or Mac. And there are also 170 million Google Workspace for Education users globally too. I wanted to explain a little bit and step back and show how Google is different in the way that they've created these tools and how they meet the more modern challenges associated with remote teaching and learning. the first difference to understand is the whole principle of Workspace is built to meet modern collaboration, communication, and learning needs. So instead of the tools being local where I work personally and then share things, the tools are collaborative and open, and everyone works in real time together. And instead of manual processes, which are clunky and not easy to organize as an end user, I have those tools and capabilities that are simple, intuitive, and easy to use in Google Workspace. So the whole principle around how the Workspace tools are designed are completely different to a more traditional way of working. More specifically for education, there are some themes that we want to draw out, and I wanted to explain the ways that Workspace helps specific roles within educational institutions. So firstly, we wanted to explain the impact on educational leaders. So these folks are able to supercharge student outcomes by providing access to these tools. They're able to keep the data private and secure. They can choose, customize, and scale whatever tools they need. And they can create value at all levels of the educational space, which is fantastic. And we have a great quote here from the CIO of a school district in the United States on the right-hand side here, where they explain the benefits of using the Google ecosystem and how easy and great the teachers find using Google Classroom to manage all of their tools. Additionally to that, of course, every educator gains a huge amount from using the Google platform. That Google Classroom tool that I explained earlier that we'll show later on in action is specifically designed to make all of these processes and tools that are managed with remote teaching easy and seamless. So you can take back impactful teaching time and use all of the benefits and the efficiencies that you've gained. Use that time for the teaching instead of managing clunky technology. It also helps tackle some of those challenges around maintaining participation and attention. All of the Google Meet features that Google have created are specifically designed, again, to try and tackle those and encourage participation. From a student's perspective, there are also, of course, a number of benefits. Tools are easy to use and simple and intuitive. So that issue around gaining access and worrying about which device and tools and data you need to access, Workspace makes that really easy. It also allows students to strengthen connection with educators and also their classmates because of these participation interactivity tools within Meet. And also in Classroom, they can interact with others too in a collaborative manner. Overall, with Google Workspace, it allows you to evolve every single day. You can take advantage of the rolling train, which is Google's continuous innovation on Workspace, and get these features delivered seamlessly to users. There's no updates to run. Google does this in the background so that the features just appear and your people will start using them effectively. So now that I've explained how Workspace is a little bit different in terms of how it's built and the tools and capabilities it provides, I want to show you a bit of a flavor of what Workspace looks like in action and show you some of these helpful tools that I've been describing. So firstly, we have Google Classroom, the tool or solution specifically built to make teachers and students' lives easier when remote learning. So teachers can create and manage classrooms, assignments, and grades online for all of their classes all in one place. It makes it really easy to organize and access at any time. And on the other hand, students can track their classwork, they can submit assignments, and also interact with their classmates as well. And both teachers and students can actually work together in real time on documents, chatting, and in video calls, facilitating a truly collaborative and immersive feedback experience. And then lastly, even guardians can keep up to date with the announcements and activities going on, as well as receive a copy of assignment submissions via email too. So that would be the Google Classroom service and how it's so helpful in the different roles involved in education remotely. Also a key theme is that the tools are flexible, and that makes them easy to access from any device at any location at any time, but in a secure manner. So for example, you're able to join Meet calls on your mobile phone or access Google Classroom. You can even edit documents in real time using your mobile phone too, if you want to. So this gives students and educators many options for accessing the Workspace tools in the way that they need. There's also, as I explained many times, there are many helpful features and AI integrations built into Workspace that help you maximize the time you spend on what matters most instead of wrestling with the technology. So for example, linked content and interactive previews let you do more within a document without having to switch to a different tool or app. And AI-powered data helps you analyze and optimize processes. And there are also smart writing suggestions built into Google Docs that help students and educators create high quality content faster. So all of this cumulative time that is saved by the helpful features that are included, they can be used instead to focus on valuable teaching and learning activities. And lastly, there's a simple and integrated design with Google Workspace. Immersive experiences like using Google Meet picture-in-picture feature, which is being shown on the right-hand side, where directly within a file you can bring in the people that you are hearing and speaking to be able to work with them. These kind of immersive experiences are really helpful in maintaining engagement and participation when involved in remote learning and teaching. There's also enhancements like live captions, in-meeting translation, adaptive layouts, low light mode, and noise cancellation that helps remove some of the barriers to remote learning, as well as features designed specifically for facilitating remote education, like breakout rooms, polling, and Q&A, which help keep students engaged in what they're learning. These tools are chosen by billions of people every single month because they're simple and easy to use. In conclusion, the paradigm shift of moving to a more flexible teaching and learning environment is here to stay, and we need new tools and capabilities to facilitate that type of environment. Google Workspace was built in the cloud from day one with that vision of flexible teaching and learning and work in mind. Google Workspace provides all of the core capabilities that educational institutions need to facilitate this effective communication and collaboration from any device in any location at any time. There's a measurable ROI for Workspace in terms of direct cost savings, collaboration efficiencies, and IT maintenance reduction. And lastly, I wanted to impress that we at SADA are happy, of course, to evaluate an organization's setup and show the benefits, cost savings that could be gained from a move to Workspace. I'd like to thank you for taking some time to listen and learn about Google Workspace as part of our series. And I would also welcome you to send any questions that you have to the email address on the screen. I would be happy to answer. So thank you again, and I hope you join us next time for another video in our series.